My name is Dr. Samantha Morgan, and I'm watching my cousin walk down the aisle in a $500,000 wedding gown, about to marry one of the world's wealthiest tech entrepreneurs. She looks radiant, confident, perfect, except she's wearing my life like a designer dress she stole. For 2 years, I've watched her live my life, use my achievements, and claim my identity as her own. But in about 20 minutes, everyone in this star-studded wedding is going to learn the truth about the bride. Let me take you back to where this all began. I was always the family's golden child, not because I was special, but because I worked relentlessly for everything I achieved. While my cousin Diana spent her time chasing rich men and living off her parents' money, I was earning my PhD in artificial intelligence from MIT, developing groundbreaking algorithms, and building a reputation as one of the leading minds in quantum computing. "You're wasting your youth," Diana would tell me during family gatherings. "All those degrees and achievements won't keep you warm at night." I ignored her, focused on my goals. By 30, I had 3 patents to my name, had published groundbreaking research in quantum computing, and was being courted by major tech companies around the world. My work was my passion, and I was living my dream. Then came the accident. 2 years ago, I was involved in a serious car crash while driving home from my lab. The injuries weren't life-threatening, but they required multiple surgeries and months of rehabilitation. I withdrew from public life, taking a sabbatical from my research to focus on recovery. What I didn't know was that Diana saw my temporary absence as an opportunity. She had always been jealous of my success, always complained about how unfair it was that I got all the brains in the family. While I was recovering in a private medical facility, she set her plan in motion. It started small. She dyed her hair to match mine, started wearing similar clothes. We had always looked similar, both tall, with the same dark hair and green eyes. People had often mistaken us for sisters rather than cousins. Then she began studying my work, memorizing details about my research, practicing my mannerisms. She had always been a gifted actress, capable of mimicking anyone she chose. Now she was choosing to become me. The final step? She legally changed her name to Samantha Morgan. By the time I was well enough to return to public life, Diana had already established herself as Dr. Samantha Morgan in Silicon Valley. She had used my credentials, my research papers, my entire academic history to create a new life for herself. And she had caught the attention of Alexander Chun, the 35-year-old billionaire founder of Quantum Dynamics, one of the world's leading quantum computing companies. I discovered the theft of my identity in the worst possible way, by reading about my own engagement in Tech Weekly magazine. There was my name, my credentials, my life story, all attached to a photo of Diana standing next to Alexander Chun, showing off a 10-carat diamond ring. My first instinct was to expose her immediately. I had all the documentation to prove my identity, after all. But as I dug deeper into the situation, I realized something interesting. Diana had unknowingly put herself in an impossible position. You see, Alexander Chun hadn't just fallen for a pretty face. He had fallen for Dr. Samantha Morgan, the brilliant quantum computing expert whose work aligned perfectly with his company's goals. Diana might have been able to memorize my research papers, but she couldn't understand them. She couldn't discuss the complex theories behind quantum entanglement or explain the algorithms I had developed. She was building her dream life on a foundation of lies that would inevitably collapse. The only question was when. I decided to wait. For 2 years, I watched and documented everything. Every public appearance, every interview where she stumbled through technical questions, every moment where she nearly gave herself away. I gathered evidence of how she had stolen my identity, tracked down witnesses who could confirm her deception, and built an airtight case. More importantly, I continued my research under a different name, making breakthroughs that would prove beyond doubt who the real Dr. Samantha Morgan was. Meanwhile, Diana was living her fairy tale. She moved into Alexander's mansion in Palo Alto, became a fixture in Silicon Valley social circles, and began planning what the media called the tech wedding of the decade. She was clever about maintaining her cover. She avoided technical discussions by claiming she was taking a break from research to focus on innovation from a different perspective. When forced to talk about my work, she would speak in carefully memorized sound bites, deflecting detailed questions with practiced charm. But there were cracks in her performance. During a TED Talk she gave about quantum computing, she couldn't answer basic questions from the audience. At a tech conference, she visibly panicked when asked to explain one of my algorithms. Each time, she played it off with a laugh and a clever deflection, but people were starting to notice. Alexander, however, seemed too in love to see the red flags. He was proud to have snagged one of the brightest minds in quantum computing, even if that mind seemed strangely unable to discuss quantum computing. The wedding planning was exactly as over the top as you'd expect. $50 million spent on creating the perfect day. The venue was a historic castle in the California wine country, transformed into a technological wonderland with holographic displays, AI-controlled atmosphere, and even quantum-inspired art installations. The guest list read like a who's who of Silicon Valley: tech billionaires, venture capitalists, pioneering researchers. Diana had even managed to keep most of our family away by claiming she wanted a small, intimate ceremony with just immediate family. The few relatives who were invited had been carefully chosen, older aunts and uncles who rarely kept up with my career and wouldn't know the difference between quantum computing and a quantum leap. I received my invitation 3 months ago, not as Dr. Samantha Morgan, of course, but as Cousin Sam. Diana probably thought she was being clever, keeping me close enough to monitor, but not close enough to expose her. What she didn't know was that I had already put my own plan in motion. First, I made sure to document everything meticulously. Every instance of identity theft, every fraudulent use of my credentials, every lie she had told. I had video evidence, witness statements, and irrefutable proof of my identity. Then I reached out to Alexander's closest friend and business partner, Dr. James Wilson, with proof of who I really was. He was understandably skeptical at first, but after I explained several complex quantum computing concepts that Diana had fumbled in recent months, he began to believe. I knew something was off, he admitted. She never seems to understand her own research when we discuss it. But Alex is so in love, he doesn't see it. Together, we planned the revelation carefully. James would ensure that the USB drive I brought contained not only evidence of Diana's fraud, but also proof of my ongoing research. Breakthroughs that only the real Dr. Samantha Morgan could have achieved. The wedding day arrived bright and clear. I dressed carefully in a simple but elegant blue dress, nothing that would draw attention. As I took my seat in the castle's grand hall, I could see Diana through a side door, resplendent in her custom designer gown, practicing her vows one last time. The ceremony began exactly as planned. Diana floated down the aisle like a princess, beaming at the assembled tech elite. Alexander waited at the altar, looking every bit the successful billionaire in his custom tuxedo. The minister began the traditional words. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." I waited patiently through the readings, the music, the sweet but plagiarized vows that Diana had probably copied from the internet. Finally, we reached the crucial moment. If anyone knows any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace. I stood up, USB drive in hand. Actually, I have something the groom needs to see. The gasps from the assembled guests were audible. Diana's face went pale as she recognized me, not as Cousin Sam, but as the real Dr. Samantha Morgan. "This is inappropriate," the minister started to say, but James was already connecting the USB drive to the venue's massive display screens. "I think we all need to see this," he said firmly. The evidence was devastating in its completeness. Photos of the real me at MIT, receiving my degrees. Video clips of my early research presentations. Documentation of Diana's legal name change. Security footage of her practicing my mannerisms and speeches. But the most damning evidence was the technical presentation I had prepared. On one screen, Diana fumbling basic quantum computing concepts. On another, me explaining complex theories with easy expertise. The contrast was impossible to ignore. "The woman you're about to marry isn't Dr. Samantha Morgan," I announced to the stunned crowd. "I am. She's my cousin Diana Reynolds, a con artist who stole my identity while I was recovering from a serious accident." The room erupted in chaos. Security guards moved to protect Alexander, who stood frozen at the altar, staring at Diana with dawning horror. "Alex, baby, I can explain," Diana pleaded, but her voice had changed. The careful modulation she used to imitate me was gone, revealing her natural tone. "Explain what?" Alexander's voice was cold. "How you've been lying to me for 2 years. How everything I fell in love with was stolen from someone else. I did it for us," Diana cried. "I knew you would never notice someone like me otherwise. I needed to be special to catch your attention." "Special?" I interrupted. "You could have been special on your own terms, Diana. You could have built your own life instead of stealing mine. But you chose the easy way, like always. The police arrived shortly after. James had arranged for them to be ready. Diana was led away in handcuffs, her beautiful designer gown incongruous with the steel bracelets around her wrists. As the guests filed out, whispering and texting furiously, Alexander approached me. "I'm so sorry," he said quietly. I should have seen through her deception. But every time I questioned something, she had an explanation, and I wanted so badly to believe. "She's very good at making people believe what they want to believe," I replied. "That's how she's gotten away with things her whole life." The aftermath was exactly what you'd expect. Diana was charged with multiple counts of identity theft and fraud. The media had a field day with the story. "Billion-dollar wedding explodes in identity theft scandal" was my favorite headline. Alexander's company, Quantum Dynamics, reached out to me about a potential collaboration. It turned out that my recent research, done under a different name during those 2 years, had produced exactly the breakthroughs they had been looking for. "We wanted to hire Dr. Samantha Morgan for her brilliant mind," Alexander told me during our first real meeting. "I guess now we finally can." Diana accepted a plea deal: 5 years in prison and mandatory psychiatric treatment. During her sentencing, she finally showed real remorse. "I'm sorry, Samantha," she said, looking more like herself than she had in years. "I was so jealous of everything you achieved. I convinced myself I deserved it more than you. I never stopped to think that I could have achieved something on my own if I'd put in the same effort you did. I didn't attend her wedding, but I did visit her in prison. Not out of anger or triumph, but because sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who need help finding a better path. You know what the saddest part is?" she asked during one visit. "I spent so much time pretending to be you that I never figured out who I really am." "Maybe that's what these 5 years are for," I suggested. "Time to find yourself instead of trying to be someone else." The tech world welcomed the real Dr. Samantha Morgan back with open arms. My new research, combined with my story of resilience, has made me something of an inspiration in Silicon Valley. I give talks now about both quantum computing and the importance of authenticity in an age of carefully curated identities. Epilogue. 5 years have passed since that dramatic wedding day. My collaboration with Quantum Dynamics has led to breakthrough developments in quantum computing. Alexander and I maintained a professional relationship that eventually blossomed into friendship, both of us a little wiser about looking beyond surface appearances. Diana was released from prison last month. She's different now, humbler, more genuine. She's taking community college classes in computer science, starting small, but working hard for the first time in her life. "I finally understand what you were trying to tell me all those years," she said during our last lunch. "Success means nothing if you haven't earned it yourself." The wedding venue was converted into a tech education center, where I sometimes teach young girls about science and the importance of being true to themselves. The castle's grand hall, where Diana's lies were finally exposed, now hosts conferences celebrating real achievements by real people. Last week, I received an invitation to another high-profile tech wedding. This time, I'm not going as a guest but as the bride. My fiancé loves me for who I am, not for my achievements or status, but for my authentic self. Diana will be there too, not pretending to be anyone but herself. She's earned her place in my life again, not as a cautionary tale, but as someone learning to write her own story. Sometimes I look back at photos from that failed wedding, Diana in my life, wearing my achievements like borrowed jewelry. It's a reminder that the truly valuable things in life can't be stolen or copied. They have to be earned day by day, choice by choice. The identity she stole was just a collection of credentials and achievements. The person I am, the real Dr. Samantha Morgan, is defined by something much more valuable: the integrity to be myself, no matter what. That's something no one can steal. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.